Hello again, Mature Simmer here. So back here on Misty Hills, as I run into my root crop harvester, but we had a wet morning to start out on the server, and we are finally at the point where things have dried and I'm able to get on and take a look. So here we are, getting ready to start the hemp harvest. So I'm going to go ahead and begin right here on field 97. Not sure, I'm kind of at the point in the day where I'm a little limited in what I'm going to be able to do, but I'm going to at least get a start on this and start getting this crop off the field, because obviously, as we learned last year, sometimes assuming we have all the time in the world because it's just early autumn is not accurate, because the weather doesn't always cooperate. So I'm going to do what I can here to get things harvested, with the hope that I won't leave hemp on the field this year. The good news too, and the thing that will help this make it a little bit more of a reality, is we certainly have less hemp than we did last time, where we had 4 large fields. You can see up in the north there, the screen hasn't redrawn yet, so you can see the part of the field that I did then ultimately carve out that was that did have trees on it. The trees, I guess, don't spawn, but the initial layout of the field does show up until things redraw. So we didn't get a huge amount of extra field, but there you go. Now it's starting to draw itself out. But I'm going to head up this way and then run the headlands. We've got someone joining the server. Not sure who this is. This is someone new that I've never seen. So it may be a contractor coming to do some work. Someone might have some crops at the custom silo, and they may be coming to do a customs contract, but either way, not a bad sync. So what I was going to say is I'm just heading up this way, and I will then cut the headland at the top, and then likely move over to the edge and just kind of start harvesting. But at this point, I wanted to start where I was at, immediately begin harvesting, and get myself to an edge of the field, and rather than driving down the road and doing something else, just decided that was the way I was going to go. So I think we're going to head over this way. I'm going to have to drop the bale on the field here shortly, as this fills relatively quickly, as we learned last time when we were harvesting. So get to 20,000. There we go. So we'll do an unload, kind of place it out here so that we're clear of the field. Alright, he joined, he left pretty quickly. So, may have been an operations person that was coming in to do some checking. Who knows? Unless they comment or kind of engage in some conversation. You know, sometimes when you're on, you'll get visitors on FSN servers that you're not quite sure what they popped in for. They could be examining something on the server, they could have signed in to make sure they could sign in, and then explored something for a contract that might be out there. But in any event, they're gone right now. So that's the only thing we know for certain, is they're no longer here. Alright, so this will definitely be an improvement from the standpoint of being able, at a small working width, to get a full amount all the way down this side of the field, given the changes we made with plowing. Now, I didn't test this machine on this field with the widening of the field, but I believe this does have a lower clearance than the standard harvester, so I wouldn't expect to have any issues, but obviously if we do suddenly get stuck, we'll have to maneuver around a little bit and play with that and get cleared up. So I think really the only possibility is here, because we do have some branches and visually we're heading right through them, but I just don't know if it's enough to hang us up. Doesn't look like it is. I don't know that there's anything else like it down the rest of the field, so I think we're pretty safe. You know, the bigger question will be, will the harvester fill in one pass up the field? Because it clearly did with where I started, but we need to keep in mind that I was 75% full from the last hemp harvest, so there was, you know, 3/4 of a bale of hemp already in here, so we'll likely be fine coming down the field and heading up, but we'll see where things play out. So I'm trying to remember last year when I started the hemp harvest. It may have actually been a day earlier, but I'm not sure that it was. Whoop. So we did get hung up somewhere here. Right, well, so. And I think, honestly, the way that is situated, we may have gotten hung up regardless of what I did. I don't know that that's just the field widening that we ran into there, but I think that gets us everything. Let me head back to reline up. So, not too bad. Definitely not worth cutting down at this point. Again, I may change my mind in the future. Now this is just a pine tree, so I think we'll be okay there. So I am surprised that I did get stuck on that branch, but clearly it can happen with the other harvester with the larger header. We're further away from the trees with whatever we have, so maybe we'll get stuck here too. Nope. So just a little quirk with that one branch, because I believe at this point we will finish things up on this end of the field. So 43%, but that also includes some traversing the headland at the top. But so it looks like we might be able to run a couple rows each time before we become full. And at this point, we're 18 rows over from where we started, pretty close to the center of the field, so we can probably assume we've got about 30 rows in total to get through to cover this field. We then have 89 to harvest and 98 up north. Obviously I'll stick around here, get things done first, given that this harvester has an exceptional top speed of, I believe it's 15 miles an hour. Minimizing the travel time is certainly something I'm going to target. Beyond that, I'm going to have to start, or I should start thinking about what I'm going to do with any of these crops. I haven't done anything with last year's crops. Obviously now I've added the barley to my silo, so I'm starting to amass some crops here, and not actually making any money or any profit, so I'm just incurring significant amounts of expense. I spent, at this point, with all the money put into these fields this year, over $150,000 to get all the fields ready for year 76. So once again, the farm definitely requires a significant outlay on an annual basis to keep going, but returns a good amount of profit even with that. But that comes with significant hours of labor to get the work done. As I'm sure if you've followed this series over any period of time, you're certainly well aware of. But just enjoyable, relaxing, feeling a sense of accomplishment, and certainly more enjoyable than kind of jumping from point to point on other maps and so forth. So I'm trying to think if there's any FSN information. Nothing specifically on the trucking front on my logistics organization with my 2 drivers, 2 trucks. I'm working to get the next certification. I'm trying to remember if it's heavy haul. I think it is, that I'm trying to get for both drivers, but what I do know for certain is it's something I need 1,500 points for on the driver, and I'm at about 1,200 or 1,300 on each driver, so thinking in the next few weeks at least I'll be able to do that and get those certifications for them, which will unlock various type of loads or load combinations for us that we've had to pass on before. There's still some other certifications that I can obtain. I'm just going to have to determine how I'm going to operate each of the drivers after that, but I believe this is the last 4-digit experience one that each of the drivers have. I think I've gotten everything else certified for them. It's going to require a significant amount of time. I think everything else is relatively low, with just hundreds of points, which can be obtained, certainly fairly quickly compared to 1,500. So I think at this point I'm going to go ahead and just keep moving forward, and I will see you in a bit. So here I am, completed the hemp harvest. So we've been successful in getting everything done this year regarding the harvest, other than obviously all these bales need to get collected. So I have decided I'm going to go ahead. I've talked to an individual who was on our server working on some of our contracts to see if they might be interested in helping out. And so I've put the bale collection and potentially moving the crops to customs as jobs they can do. I may get to them myself before they look at them, or I may not. I'm actually going to drive over here and get this fixed up before I take this up north. But yeah, at this point I just wanted to let you know, and I did have this done actually a little bit early. It was still dark by the time I was done, but it wasn't this late. And again, the server time is off a tiny bit, probably more than a tiny bit. So it is pretty late, but it's not, 1 a.m. yet. So, definitely been some long days, but I'm starting to dabble with the idea of maybe having I don't know, a passive farmhand, if you want to call it that, where someone who, gets a little familiar with what we've got, works through things, but there's not necessarily a guarantee at this point that I'm going to have lots of work. So, don't need somebody who's looking for substantial work, but I'll be curious just to see how it all evolves. And, I may find myself in a position now where I have more of the work done, because frankly, it is taking a long time. And I'm kind of like a lot of folks in that it would be nice to have something come up in FS22 where we've got a new farm to start working, and we're doing the same thing we're doing here, but doing it on a FS22 map. So not really sure. Still think that's going to be a ways away, but the individual I spoke with or communicated with today, they're kind of in that boat. They've joined FSN. They want to get going and get working, but they aren't going to become a farm manager until there's a good FS22 map out that is available within FSN. So they're kind of waiting like we are, and in the interim we might be able to get some assistance. And depending on how that goes, partially why I'm entertaining that fact is, like I said, I'm still debating if 88 and 87 come up. Do I get those? Certainly if I've got somebody doing some additional work when I'm unable to do it, that would be helpful. So, and what this may turn into is I may end up having some more people that I communicate with, because I was getting ready to just put a base ad out on the FSN Discord and ask and start to see if anybody wanted to help. But what I'm hearing from folks is it's just pretty challenging to get people. So, I don't want to go crazy with the farm based on that, assuming that I can get help. Because again, I've worked on farms that are so large that the only way the work can get done is if you have an army of contractors. Otherwise you're left with things sitting around not done, and I certainly would prefer to avoid that. So, but I never thought I'd get to the point where I'd even be considering semi-regular assistance, but at this point, just because as more things come out on FS22, there's maps to look at and review. That's how I'm going to ultimately potentially find something that might want to be usable in FSN that we'll want to submit for consideration. But to do that, I need time to keep up with things on the FS22 side, and it's getting a little more challenging to do that. And I think, frankly, on the channel, like it or not, as much as I was hoping that there would be significant interest in people following along on an FSN farm, I've got a handful of folks, I think, because I tend to get a couple dozen views on these FSN videos, but I'm certainly not getting the amount when I put something out for FS22 as far as a new mod or talking about how to use something like auto drive or whatever, where I'm getting hundreds or thousands of views on some of those. So the reality is the demand on the channel is not FS19 FSN videos. There's just a little demand for that. And while I'll certainly continue to video and produce content based on what I'm doing here, that's what's made me a little more comfortable as well of, maybe farming that out, or, pardon the pun, but to someone else to work on, and then kind of benefiting from the money that's coming in, but letting some other folks do more of the work. So I'm a little more open at this point to see how that might work and how challenging that will be, because once again, if I find that I can't get folks to jump in and do things, we may just be back in the same position. But also because of that, and certainly feel free to comment down below, as I've been asking periodically here and there, although it's probably been a few dozen videos since I've brought it up. But if you'd like to see more of the work, if you'd like the videos to be longer, if you'd like the videos to be shorter, I'm starting to basically lean toward starting whatever the day's work is with a conversation. I typically seem to run, I guess it's good I drove this up here. I forgot I had this piece down here. So I guess I'm not quite done. So it can be a little bit later night than I was expecting, but this is a pretty small piece on the farm here, so it should only take me 5 or 10 minutes to get this done, I would hope. But I may prove that wrong, because again, it is a very small working width. Not quite long enough, but there we go. Alright, we'll lock into that, and we'll get this done. And yeah, I kind of went away from my normal pattern, which would have been to do this kind of in the process of when I had done the upper part, and then come down here and do this part. And obviously I didn't, and so I had moved over to 89 knowing that there'd be a lot that I needed to do to get that done, and given the fact that I didn't know how long it would take and the weather situation, I felt, alright, I'll deal with this later, and I forgot about it. So the other reality is I think I'm going to be a bit short in storage. I'm pretty sure, because I think I've got room for like 17 bales or something, and I'm pretty sure I've got more than that across these 3 fields. So that means I'm going to have more than I have storage for, which means I'm going to have to sell the hemp and then build a storage shed immediately and put stuff back into it. So that's going to make it a little bit more of a challenge. Although if I have someone assisting me, if I'm available and he lets me know, I can always post the contract, immediately sell and put the shed up, and then they can continue to collect the bales. So it might work out pretty well, because they'll be able to do the audit on the bales and verify that in fact I'm selling 60 bales, which is what would fill that shed, which again would be 1.2 million of hemp, which in the grand scheme of things is not too bad for having had a partial field on 30 and half the field not be able to be harvested. It doesn't turn out to be too bad of a yield, but right now the price is about $160 per liter less than the price I saw for hemp at one point. Although if I run it to the warehouse, I think I'm able to get a little closer to that amount, so I may do that, where normally with bales I just direct sell, but right now it looks like about $930 a liter for the direct sell when I checked it earlier today, and I had seen it at $1,090 at one point, but if I'm at the point where we fill this, I'm kind of going to have to take the price I can find. And I could always wait a little bit and just store it in the warehouse too if I wanted, but at the warehouse level, I think it was over 1,100, so I could still get probably that 1090. Doing it at the warehouse and selling it over a 30-day period. So, and that's where I'm sending the oats and the barley. But anyway, going back to the kind of what do you want to see in these episodes going forward, is at this point I'm leaning a little bit more because it's just obviously easier to get them out there. And since the viewership tends to be very focused of certain people that are interested in, I'm guessing the interest is more of the general progress of the farm. And so if I can do a 5, 10, 15 minute start of this is what I'm doing, and then maybe just as I'm doing now, do the end and literally skip the middle, because obviously there's already, we're coming up on 50 episodes already, and there's 50 episodes of work out there at this point on the farm, and so if people want to see how that work goes. Oh, I didn't really think it was gonna finish that, so I thought I would have one row left, so I kept going, but I guess not. So let me go back and get this, because obviously it doesn't make any sense to come back and pick that up later. Pick up the header to move a little quickly, put it back down, and then we'll finish that up, and we'll dump this bale out here, and but that would be kind of the point. Then I think it would. I'd record the beginning and the end just to let you know what happened, but probably forego doing the time lapses and things that I have been doing in the past. And maybe once in a while I throw a longer video of something in there, but the majority of things would start to turn into shorter videos. It just makes it easier on several fronts, and unless I hear otherwise, that seems to be kind of something that seems that it would satisfy demand anyway, because it's not like I've gotten more views of longer videos or shorter ones. And usually people are watching like 5 minutes of the video, so I'm assuming people are jumping around as it is. But so I'm gonna head off to bed at this point, wrap this up. Again, it probably was another 10 minutes longer than I expected, having to do that last segment of hemp, but it was another bale, so that will help with the income. Truck's ready to go, and that I'll be probably on in 4 or 5 hours, and if that hasn't been picked up and done, I'll start doing that, and then I'll jump over to the baling. But again, that's for a separate episode, all of that, so I will see you next time.